Hello, friends. I hope you're out wandering through nature, exploring the natural world around you. Do you enjoy writing about your wanderings? Nature journaling is an awesome, fun way to remember all the adventures you have taken and how you felt during those journeys. If you're looking for some beautiful journals to keep track of all your wanderings, I have several available on Amazon, including some guided journals for children. Start your journey in journaling by clicking on the link in the show notes. Keep exploring the nature around you and keep journaling all your wanderings. Hello, friends, and welcome to the podcast. This is Paul, and I'd like to wish you a happy Indigenous Peoples Day. Yeah, this coming Monday. Wait a minute. We missed it. It was last Monday because this podcast is coming out the week after. But happy Indigenous Peoples Day. And every year, I like to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day and honor the Native Americans by telling some Native American stories. Native American stories are very interesting. I find them very fascinating, very nature-related, most of them, because they like to tell how things came to be in nature. So, like, you can say that the pine tree came from a seed many years ago, or you can go back and say which came first, the pine seed or the pine tree, or, anything in nature you can explain scientifically. But I kind of like the mystery behind things, how the Native Americans would explain how different things happened, how different things came to be in nature. They didn't know, so they had stories that were passed on from generation to generation explaining why these came to be. And that's why I enjoy Native American stories so much. And I do have some Native American stories that I'd like to share with you, some of my favorites. And once again, I do this every year, so I picked some new stories this year, so it's not the same as last year. And the first story I'd like to tell has to do with a little bit of this time of year. It is autumn, and the leaves around me have been changing rather rapidly. I actually live in a house now, a neighborhood with lots of trees. Yeah, my old house, there weren't many trees around. I didn't have to rake leaves. Now I do. And there's a lot of them falling in my yard. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about the story of Rainbow and the autumn leaves. Now, this is a Huron story. Now, in the olden days, long before the Indians came to Canada, all the animals talked and worked like men. Every year after midsummer, they held a great council at which they were all present. But it happened once in the summer before the council met that they all wanted to go to the sky to see what the country up there was like. None of them could find a way to go. The oldest and wisest creature on all the earth was Turtle. One day he prayed to the thunder god to take him to the sky, and his prayer was soon answered. There was a great noise as if the earth had been split asunder, and when the people next looked for Turtle, he was nowhere to be found. They searched everywhere without success. But that evening, when they looked upwards, they saw him in the sky, moving about like a black cloud. Turtle liked the sky so well that he decided to live there always and to send his descendants later to the earth. And the sky people agreed to keep him. They asked him, "Where do you want to dwell?" And he answered, "I should like to dwell in the black cloud, in which are the ponds and streams and lakes and springs of water. For I always dwell near these places when I was young." So he was allowed to have his wish. But when the great council of the animals met on earth in the time of the harvest moon, he was always present. He came in the black cloud, but he always went back to the sky after the council was ended. And the other animals envied him his good fortune, and they wished that they could go with him. After a time, the animals were greatly distressed and angered by the rumor that a new race of creatures was coming from far over the ocean to inhabit their land. They talked it over very carefully, and they all thought how fortunate it would be if they could all go to the sky with Old Turtle and live like him, free from the fear and trouble and care. But they were puzzled to know how to get there, for Turtle had never told any of them the way. One day Deer, wandering about alone in the forest, as was his custom, came across Rainbow, who often built a path of many colors to the sky. And he said to Rainbow, "Carry me up to the sky, for I want to see Turtle." But Rainbow was afraid to do it, for he wished first to ask the Thunder God for permission. And he put Deer off, and to gain time he said, "Come to me in winter, when I stay for a time on the mountain near the lake. Then I will gladly carry you to the place where Turtle dwells." Throughout the long winter months, Deer looked longingly for Rainbow, but Rainbow did not come. Life was growing harder on the earth, and the animals were in terror of the new race that was soon to come to their land, and Deer was very timid and impatient. At last, one day in the early summer, Rainbow came again, and Deer hastened to meet him. "Why were you false to me?" he asked. "I waited for you all winter long on the mountain by the lake, but you did not come as you promised. I want to go to the sky now, for I must see Turtle." Rainbow answered, "I cannot take you now, but some day, when there is a fog over the lake, I shall come back to drive it away. Come to me then, and I shall take you to the sky and to the place where Turtle dwells. This time I will not deceive you." Rainbow consulted the Thunder God and received permission to do as Deer wished. Soon afterwards, the fog one day rolled in a thick bank across the lake, and Deer hurried out to wait for Rainbow. Sure enough, Rainbow came down, as he had promised, to drive the fog away. He threw his arch of many colors from the lake to the blue hills far away, and the fog at once disappeared from the place. And he said to Deer, who stood watching him, "Now I will keep my promise. Follow my many-colored path over the hills and the forests and the streams, and be not afraid. You will soon reach Turtle's home in the sky." Deer did as he was told, and soon he reached the sky. Turtle was glad to see him, and Deer liked the country so well that he decided to stay forever. And he roamed over the sky everywhere, moving like the wind from place to place. When midsummer had passed, and the harvest moon had come, and the great council again met together, Deer was absent for the first time in his life. The animals waited long for him to appear, for they needed his advice, but he did not come. They sent the birds out to find him. Black hawk and woodpecker and blue jay all sought him in the forest, but they could not find a trace of him. Then wolf and fox scoured the woods far and near, but they came back and reported that he could not be found anywhere. At last, Turtle arrived at the meeting of the great council, as was his custom, coming in his black cloud, in which were the ponds and lakes and streams and springs of water. And Bear said, "Deer is absent from the council meeting. Where is Deer? We cannot meet without him, for we need his advice." And Turtle replied, deers in the sky. Have you not heard? Rainbow made a wonderful pathway for him of many varied colors, and by that he came to the sky. There he is now." And he pointed to a golden cloud scurrying around the sky overhead. Turtle advised that the animals should all go to the sky to live until they could be sure that the new race of creatures would bring them no harm. And he showed them the pathway that Rainbow had made, stretching from the earth in wonderful colors. The animals all agreed at the great council to take Turtle's advice, but they were all very angry at Deer for leaving them without warning, for they thought that all the animals should either stay together faithfully on the earth or go all together to the sky. Bear showed the greatest anger and annoyance. Because of his great strength, he had no fear of the new race that was said to soon be coming, and he had always been inclined to look with scorn on Deer's timid and impatient ways. "Deer has forsaken us," he said. "He deserted us in the hour of our danger, and that is contrary to forest laws and to our code of defense." And he thought to himself, "I shall punish him for this when the time comes." In the late autumn, the time agreed upon came for the animals to leave the earth, and Rainbow again made his bright path for them to the sky. Bear was the first to go up because he was the leader, and because with his great weight he wanted to test the strength of the bridge of burning colors, over which he had to pass. When he had almost reached the sky, he met Deer on the path waiting to welcome the animals to their new home. And he said to him in anger, "Why did you leave us behind, without warning, for the land of the turtle? Why did you desert the great council? Why did you not wait until all could come together? You are a traitor to your comrades, and you have been false to your faith." And Deer answered also in anger, "Why are you to doubt me or my faith? None but the wolf may ask me why I came or question my fidelity. I will kill you for your insolence." Deer had grown very proud since he had gone to live in the sky, and he was no longer timid as he had been on earth. His eyes flashed in his fury, and he arched his neck and lowered his antlered head and rushed madly at Bear to push him from the path. But Bear was not afraid, for he had often tested his strength with Deer upon the earth. His low, hoarse growls sounded all over the sky, and he prepared to fight. They came together with a shock. For a long time they battled until the bridge of burning colors trembled and the heavens shook from the force of the conflict. The animals waiting by the lake at the end of the path looked up and saw the battle above them. They feared the results, for they wanted neither Bear nor Deer to die. So they sent Wolf up to the sky to put a stop to the contest. When Wolf reached the combatants, Bear was bleeding freely, for Deer with his antlers had pierced his neck and side. Deer too was bleeding where Bear's strong claws had torn a great wound in his head. Wolf soon stopped the battle, and Bear and Deer went away to dress their wounds. Then the other animals went up to the sky over Rainbow's flaming path, and they decided to live in the sky and to send their descendants back to Earth when the new race of creatures should come. And they can still sometimes be seen, like clouds, hurrying across the sky in the shape they had on Earth. But the blood of Bear and of Deer dropped from them as they moved to the sky from the scene of their battle along the Rainbow Road. It fell freely upon the leaves of the trees beneath them and changed them into varied colors. And every year when autumn comes in the North Country, the leaves take on again the bright and wondrous colors given to them by the blood of bear and deer when they fought on the rainbow path ages and ages ago. And bear and deer have never since been friends, and their descendants no longer dwell together in peace as they did in the olden days. So that's the story of how, leaves get their colors. Oh, that darn deer. He should have just let everyone know. So this is the sort of story that the Native Americans would tell to talk about how things came to be. Now I've got time for a few more stories, and another favorite story of mine, another one that I really enjoy, is how the robin got its red breast. Now some Indian hunters once made their way north to hunt for moose. It was at the time of falling leaves. They journeyed for several days until they came to a lake. Close by the lake, they built a log cabin. Moss was placed between the logs to keep out the wind, and a thick roof was made from hemlock boughs. In the center of the roof, a small opening was left for the smoke from the lodge fire to pass out. Now here the hunters lived during the moon of falling leaves. Every day they went on the moose trail, but they found no moose. Their arrows brought them little game of any kind. They became discouraged and sick, and one by one the hunters lay down and died. At last there was but one hunter left. He too was sick, and he grew weaker day by day. His food was nearly gone. It was growing cold, and there was little wood in the cabin to burn. But the man did not give up. Again and again he cried aloud, "Someone will come and help me! Someone will come and help me!" One day, as he lay there too weak to rise, the fire flickered and went out. It seemed that he must die. But even then he did not give up. Again and again, with his weak voice he cried, "Someone will come and help me. Someone will come and help me." And someone did come and help him. His cry was heard, for a bird came flying in through the smoke hole in the roof of the lodge. The bird had such a cheery, brave voice that the man felt better the moment he flew in. The bird said to the man, "I was near. I heard you calling. I have come to help you." Then the bird saw that the fire was out, and that the man was cold. He fluttered around among the ashes until he found a bit of a live coal. With a glad chirp he flew out through the roof. Soon he was back, with his bill full of dried twigs. He placed them on the fire and began to fan them into the flame with his wings. Soon the twigs were blazing. Then he flew out for more twigs, and more, and more, and more. The brave little bird kept on carrying twigs until the fire burned hot and the lodge was warm once more. When the bird had flown into the lodge, he had had a clean white breast. But after the fire was built, he noticed that his breast was covered with red and brown spots. He tried to pick them off with his bill, but they would not come off. Instead, they seemed to spread, and his whole breast became reddish-brown. Then the bird knew that he must have burned his breast to a red-brown when he was fanning the fire into flame. But the little bird did not care if he was soiled or his white breast, had been turned and burned into this reddish brown. Had he not brought cheer and life to a dying man? This made it all worth it. He chirped a few glad notes, then said to the man, "I will go now, but I shall be near your lodge. When you need me, call, and I will come again." Later in the day, the man again called for help. The fire was getting low, and he was not yet strong enough to go out and gather twigs. Again the bird came to his aid. In and out he flew many times, after small branches and twigs, until they were piled high on the fire, and once more it crackled and burned. There was a little wood in the lodge. The man placed it on the fire, and the warmth healed the man, so that soon he was well and strong again. Every day the man talked with the bird, for he was always near, and his cheery voice and brave words gave the man courage. Once more he went to the moose trail, and this time his arrows brought him moose. In a short time the hunter had all the meat, skins, and moose hair he wanted. The moose hair he was taking to his wife to work into pretty forms on moccasins. The first snow was falling as the hunter started south on the home trail. The bird hopped along by his side for a little way, then said, "I must leave you now. Winter is coming, and I must be on my way to the Southland, or the snow will catch me. In the spring, you will see me again." When spring came, the bird with the red-brown breast came with his mate and built a nest close to the hunter's home lodge. In the nest that summer, there grew up 5 little birds, and they, too, had that reddish and brown breasts. And ever since, Robin Redbreast has continued to come and build his nest close to the lodges of men, for Robin Redbreast is a friend to man. So that's a really fun story on how the robin got its red breast. Now, how about turkey buzzards? Yeah, they're a favorite, and actually they're turkey vultures. A lot of people call them turkey buzzards, but they're not really a buzzard. But this story was named How the Turkey Buzzard Got Its Suit. It was a long, long time ago, when the earth was very young. Trees and flowers were growing everywhere, but there were no birds. One morning, the Great Spirit drew back the blanket from the door of his wigwam in the sky. He looked upon the earth and smiled, for he saw that his work was good. "Today," he thought, "I will make big butterflies to fly in and out among the beautiful trees and flowers of the earth. They shall sing as they fly." Then the Great Spirit spoke, and the treetops were full of birds, but they had no feathers. All day he watched them fly and listened to their song, but their naked bodies and long legs did not please him. Before the sun had set, he had made feathered suits of every size and color to cover them. That night, as the birds hid their heads under their wings, the Great Spirit spoke to them. He told about the feathered suits he had made for them, and where these suits could be found. A council was called next day by the birds. They chose Gagagawa, the turkey buzzard, to get the suits. He could fly over a long trail and not be tired. The birds told him that if he would go, he might have the first choice of the suits of feathers. But he must try on no suit more than once. Turkey Buzzard promised and set out towards the setting sun. Twice the sun set, and 3 times it rose, before he found the feathered suits. There were many of them, and they were very beautiful. He could not make up his mind which one he would like best to wear. Then he remembered that he could try on each suit of feathers once, so he began to put them on. The feathers of the first suit were too long. They trailed on the ground as he walked. Neither could he fly well in them. Turkey Buzzard laid that suit aside. The next suit shone like gold. The feathers were a beautiful yellow. Turkey Buzzard put it on and strutted up and down the forest. "Oh, how handsome I am," he said. "But I must not keep this, for if I did, I should shine so like the face of the Great Spirit, and all the other birds would see me." And he slipped off the suit of yellow feathers as quickly as possible. A third suit was the pure white feathers. Turkey Buzzard thought it looked very beautiful. It was a perfect fit. "But it will get dirty too soon," he said. "I will not choose this." And this, too, was laid aside. There were not enough feathers in the fourth suit. Turkey Buzzard shivered with cold. It was not warm enough. He would not have it. There were too many feathers and too many pieces in the fifth suit. It took too much time to put it on. Turkey Buzzard did not want that. So he went from one suit to another, trying on and taking off. Always he had some new fault to find. Something was wrong with each one. Nothing quite pleased him. No suit was just right. At last there was but one suit left. It was not pretty. It was a plain, dull color, and very short of feathers. At the neck and head, there were hardly any feathers. Turkey Buzzard put it on. He did not like it. It did not fit him well. It was cut too low in the neck. Turkey Buzzard thought it was the homeliest suit of all. But it was the last suit, so he kept it on. Then the Turkey Buzzard gathered up the suits and flew back to the bird lodge. He still wore the plain, dull-colored suit. The birds again called a council. Each was told to select a suit from those Gagagawa had brought and put it on. This they did. Then the birds in their beautiful feathered suits began to walk and fly about the Turkey Buzzard and to make fun of his plain, dull dress. But the Turkey Buzzard held his head high. He walked proudly about among the birds. He looked with scorn on their beautiful suits. After a time he spoke. He said, "Gagagawa, the Turkey Buzzard does not want your suits. He had the pick of them all. He likes his own suit best." So that's why the Turkey Buzzard, or turkey vulture, does not have that beautiful colored outfit. It's because, well, you learned he picked the wrong suit, but it was the last one. He didn't have a choice, so he made do, and he was happy with it. So that's an Iroquois story. The Haudenosaunee, they are the Native Americans who are in the northeastern U.S. That's one of their stories. Now, the last story that I want to tell here is another fun one. This is Why the Woodpecker Pecks. When you hear a tap, tap, tap sounding in the top of the dead tree or at the top of a telephone pole in the springtime, you look up and what do you see? A woodpecker, of course. No bird but the woodpecker and his kinfolk pound on dead wood with their beaks. You look up at the woodpecker, and there he is, looking just like a man in a black coat and a red hat. And he is smart. If he sees you looking at him, he stops pecking and slips around the other side of the limb or the pole and only sticks out his red head to peep at you. There was a time when woodpeckers used to be Native Americans. A certain plant that grew on the desert was called the mescal plant. Little knobs or buttons which grew on this plant had, when eaten, a magic power. The Indians who ate them had visions or dreams. They could see their gods and talk with their ancestors. But only those Indians who were medicine men and had the right to see strong things had the right to eat the mescal buttons. They warned everybody else not to touch them, or bad luck would come to them. One man did not listen to the medicine men. He wanted to know what the medicine men saw in their dreams when they ate the mescal buttons, and they fell down to the ground or wandered about the camp singing with their eyes closed. This Indian boy slipped out one night away from his people when the wolves were howling far off in the desert, and went to where the mescal plants were growing. By the light of the bright stars, he could see the buttons growing on the plants. Half afraid, he picked one. Then he put it into his mouth. Because it tasted good, he picked more, and he ate them. It was not long before everything was strange before his eyes, and the desert seemed to grow bright with light, and to be filled with moving things that looked like the gods the medicine men talked about. The boy was thrilled. When he tried to walk towards the gods, he fell down, and wonderful colors seemed to swim in the air around him as he lay on the ground. Then he fell asleep. The next day, the boy whispered to other boys what had happened to him when he ate the mescal buttons. They were tempted by what he told them. That night, they slipped out of the camp with the boy and ate the buttons, and they saw the strange visions that he had seen on the desert. Then those boys began to tell their fathers about it. The fathers ate the buttons, and they told their wives what they had seen. It was not long until all the Indians of the tribe were eating them. They laughed when the medicine man told them that trouble would come. They stopped hunting, stopped weaving their blankets, stopped planting food, stopped gathering berries. All they did was to eat the mescal buttons and to roll on the ground while they had strange visions. The mothers and fathers forgot about their poor little children. At last, the children became so hungry that they began to wander around looking for food. They wandered from the camp and began looking among the bushes and trees and stones for something to eat. After all the children had gone, one young mother, who had not eaten many of the mescal buttons, opened her eyes. When she saw that her child had gone, and looked quickly around the camp and could not see any of the children at all, she then jumped to her feet and started crying out. She beat the other Indians until they too awoke. Then they all began crying for their children, but they could not find them. What had happened to the children of the tribe? The Manitou, one of the gods that made the clouds in the sky and hurl the lightning, had found them hungry and hunting for food, and the Manitou had taken pity on them. He had hidden them all away inside of hollow trees, where they would be out of the hot sun and safe from the wolves. The Manitou, when he saw the Indians looking for their children, appeared before them and told them what he had done. "Oh, what can we do to get them back?" cried the weeping Indians to the Manitou. "I will turn you into birds, and you can go look for them in the hollow trees. When you find them, I will turn you all back into people again," the Manitou said. He waved his hand over the Indians. They became birds. The black robes they were wearing turned into black feathers, and the red feathers they wore in their hair turned into the red head of the woodpeckers. Then the tribe flew off to the trees and began tapping every tree with their sharp bills to find their children. Even yet the woodpeckers top the trees. When they find bugs, they eat them because they are hungry, but they keep on tapping to find their children. So that's why you always hear the tapping of the woodpecker. They're still looking for their children. I hope you enjoyed hearing all these Native American tales. So you can find a lot of these stories in different sources. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you had a wonderful Indigenous Peoples Day. I'd like to thank you for listening to the podcast. Don't forget to share it with your friends, share it with others, spread the word about the podcast. If you want to support the podcast, the links are in the show notes, along with links to my website and how to contact me if you have any ideas for any episodes you'd like to hear, any topics you'd like to hear about nature. And above all, keep exploring the nature around you. Have a great day. Did you know that plastic is made with oil, a fossil fuel that pollutes the environment? And did you know that only about 15% of all plastic is recycled into new products? Wouldn't it be awesome if we could live our lives without plastic so that we could stop harming the planet? Well, there's a company that wants to help you do just that. Life Without Plastic sells products that will reduce or eliminate your dependence on plastic. They have a large selection from toothbrushes to food storage containers to drinking straws, all plastic free. And it's reasonably priced. So what are you waiting for? Check out all these great plastic-free products and help save the planet. Just click on the link in the show notes to find out more and to start your journey to being plastic-free.